Welcome to this course. In this course, I'm going to be teaching you how to design a flyer on Photoshop. I'm not going to be skipping processes. I'm going to be doing a step-by-step process on how to create nice flyers on Photoshop. So if you are ready, let's get started. So I'm going to create a new file. Now, the new Instagram ratio is actually 3:4. So I normally use 3000 by 4000. And because I'm working on a carousel, I'm going to be using what we call artboards. So preset details, the name should be social media design. Majorly, I use resolution around 150 to 200. So for this class, I'm going to be using 120 because I don't want my PC to lag. The color mode is RGB, 8-bit is okay, standard RGB. Sometimes I use Adobe RGB, but standard is the best color to use. And I'm going to create my file. All right, let's get started. Now, this is my first artboard. Let me call it cover page, so that by the time I'm saving it, it's not saving with a generic name, it's saving with cover page. Good. On my cover page, first I need to work on my colors. All right, I need colors to work with. Then I have to create my gradients, background, and so on and so forth. But I'm not going to start there. I'm going to be taking my color from the assets that I already have. So let me open my assets for you. So these are the assets that I have that I'm going to be working with. These guys that you can see right here. I'm going to be working with especially this color or this. Okay, I think I'm going to be working with this. Let me import this. All right, awesome. So I like I'm going to choose this right side like this. I like the color, the way it is. It's so minimalistic and nice. So I've chosen the two colors over here. You can see how I chose them. Just click here, click the color you like, click there, click the color you and like that. So I'll go to layer one. I can hold this. So I'll go here and go to gradients, and I can now go to my basics because I've saved it here to be my basics. So I'm going to click it like that. So I have this right here. So I can choose to reverse it. I can choose to leave it like this, depending on which one I want to use at that moment. So I think I'll be using this, yeah, like this for now. Okay, let me make this other part a little bit darker to create contrast. Okay, too much. Make it have more saturation. Okay, saturation does it. So this is nice. This color is very, very nice to work with, right? So now that I have my gradient color, okay, I want to make sure that I have it also like that. Now that I have my gradient color, I have the two here. So I'm going to be working with the two, as I'm designing. I don't want to work with colors that are not here. I want to make sure I'm using these two colors always so that I don't have a social media branding that is not consistent. You get my point. So let's start with the image. Let's say we want to use this image. Let me increase it. Although this image is not very sharp, but we can still manage it. I mean, it's just for social media. So select subjects. Now, if you're wondering how this image was edited to look like this, okay, actually, this one was not edited by me, but there will be a tutorial on how to edit images like this. Probably if you subscribe to the Photoshop Mastery class that I'll be hosting very soon. So just so you know. All right, so let me remove, I've selected the subject. I need to remove the background, so I'll just mask like that. And I can bring it down here. Increase it a little bit. This is perfect. You can see that the color is wearing is matching the color of the background, making it look very good. But there is an issue. If you zoom in very well, you realize that there's actually a little bit of, when I cut it out, there's a little bit of some highlights on the hair. So how do I fix this? So these are the things that you actually need to know as a creative. Let me zoom in on the hair. Now I'm going to create a new layer like this. I'm going to clip that layer to this image. So I've clipped it like that. Then I will choose my brush tool with B as brush. Then I want to make sure that I'm painting with the color of the hair. So I'm going to choose the color of the hair like this, or something like around gray, black, like this. Then I'll reduce my brush. To reduce your brush, you can hold on Alt, right click, and drag left and right like that. So because it's already clipped to it, I'll just trace it like that. You can see that that part is darker now, right? Yes, but it might be a little bit too dark, so I can use my blend modes, you know, multiply, darken, dissolve. I don't know which one works better. Color dodge. Okay, I like this overlay. It's very dark. Then I will just reduce it a little. Yes, this is perfect. So you can check the before and after, before, after. So this is perfect now. Now you are now professional and people will not judge you that you are being a lazy designer. Now that I have this, I want you to know that in flower design, you must pay attention to three major things. Like based on what I believe, you must pay attention to your header. It's gonna be a big one, an header. Then maybe your subtext is gonna be smaller. Then your CTA, if you get that. So if you can focus on those three things, then your flyer will make sense. So I'm gonna be working with the three now. I'll start with the header. So what would my header be? My header would be swift and easy trade, because this is for a trading platform. So I'm gonna delete this. I'm gonna hit on text. So I can use Montserrat, but Montserrat is overused. So I'm gonna be using, just for this video, I'm gonna be using Factom. So I'm gonna be using Factom. Now because I'm working with header, I'm gonna be using Factom bold. So click on that. Now I realize that the color is actually blue. I don't want that, I want white. So turn it to white and save. Then I want to make sure that I'm changing this back to what it used to be. So yeah, that's perfect. So now I will edit my text to Swift. Okay, Swift. And okay, so Factom does not have everything, doesn't have all the symbols. So let me use a font that have all symbols. So let me use let me use Satoshi. Let's use Satoshi bold, Swift, and all right. So this is nice. Now you can see that I made it bigger because this is my header. This is the first thing people are gonna see on this design. So I have to make it very, very big so that people can actually see it very well, right? Because that's what I'm advertising. Swift and I want to say Swift and easy trade. So I'll copy this and I'll say easy. Now I don't want it to look too simple, so I'm going to be adding a kind of a rectangle like this. Take the rectangle too. Now my layer is already getting, now this is one of the issues with designers. We don't focus on our layers and it's not good. So I want to make swift and easy. I want to bring them both up. I'm coming. Okay, I'm gonna bring them both up like this, swift and easy. Then since they are for my text, my header, I can group them and say header. So this rectangle, okay, let me delete this. So the new rectangle I want to create, I want it to also be in that header. Let me delete this. I want it to also be in that header. So I'm creating the rectangle in that header so that everything will be the header. So I'm gonna create a rectangle like such. All right, good. Now that I have my rectangle, I want to round it up a little bit, maybe 74, just a little bit. So then I will now control T on it, that's to transform it. But I want to do a perspective um transform. So I will hold on control. You can see when I hold on control, this thing is changing. Can you see it? So as I hold on control, I'll drag like this a little. I can hold on shift and drag it up a little too. Okay, I think this is fine. Then I can reduce the size of this guy. So swift and easy. Good. You can see that everything is in the header. So I can easily copy the easy, bring it above the rectangle, and write my trade. TRADE, trade. All right, so let me transform that, scale it down a little. Okay, so I'm seeing that these stuffs are kind of. Now, when you are working on a design, when you are using bold, please don't use fox bold again. This is called fox bold. When you use bold, don't use fox bold. Instead, it's either use fox bold and use semi bold, or just use bold and remove your fox bold. You can see that it makes sense now. So please make sure you always pay attention to that. So this is the Swift and whatever. They are also on fox bold, even though they are normally bold. So let me remove the fox bold so it's better now. So swift and easy trade. I want to make sure this is aligned. So now to align two texts together, select the first text, hold on shift and click on the second text. Then you can see this alignment up here. Just click it. Then they are aligned like this. You get that? So you can always use that too. So what I did to this is when you click on the what's it called? This rectangle and you hold on shift and click on trade, then you can move both together like that. Another thing is that if you want like this, I've worked on these three and I believe that these three are working together. So if I want to link them together such that I can, whenever I move one, every other person will follow. So I will click on this, click on this, click on this, and click on trade. Then I'll go here. You see what we call link to. So link the layers. So I will just click on link. So this will appear on the four, like the swift, easy, uh, rectangle, and trade. So now if I move any of the three, I mean any of the four, they all move together because I've linked them up together. So swift and easy trade. Good. So now we've created our header. So we want to create um our subtext probably. I want to create our subtext. But before our subtext, I want to add this guy. I want to add curvature pen to, I want to add a kind of stylish stuff like this. So this is what I just did. Let me delete it. You go to pen tool and search for curvature pen tool. Normally the shortcut I use is P. So once I press P on my computer, on Photoshop, it chooses the pen tool. Then I can now right click here and choose curvature pen tool. So after choosing curvature pen tool, I want to create a new layer up here. Okay, let me add it to the header. This is a new layer, there's nothing there. So new layer. This is a new layer, there's nothing there. Then I'll use my pen tool. Try to doodle a little like this. Go like this, like this, like this, something like that. You can just adjust it to your, to your taste to suit you better. I hope you are following this and I hope you are practicing as you are watching, because the best way to learn is to practice while learning, especially when it comes to design and graphics. Okay, this is not perfect. This is not really what I want. Okay, I'm coming. Let me just delete this. Let me do something quite simple like this. Yeah. Yeah. I think this is better. Now look at this. Look at this line. This part. We call it a part. Anything you create with a pen tool, we call it a part. All right. Now on this part, I want to right click and stroke that part. But before I do that, my part has been done like this. Then I'll go to brush tool, B for brush tool. right click and you see this option. I want to change my brush size to around 25 thereabouts, then the hardness to 100. Then I want to make sure that the color is white for the brush. Then I'll now choose pen tool again. Then I'll now right click, stroke path, brush. If you want to stimulate, okay, let me just do the two. If you check stimulate pressure, then some parts will be thin, some parts will be thick, like that. But I don't want that. I think there's an issue with the brush. Okay, hardness 100, size 32, enter. Okay, always press enter after doing something. Then stroke path. So if I stimulate pressure, some side will be thin, some side will be thick, like this. You can see that. But if I don't stimulate pressure, coming, stroke path. If I don't check the stimulate pressure, then everything will be equal, it will be even, like that. So which one do you prefer? I think I prefer the first one actually. So let me use pressure, stroke path, stimulate pressure. Okay, and that's perfect, 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 perfect. So I want to go on with the subtext probably now. I want to probably go with the subtext now. Let me turn this back so I don't lose that color. All right, I want to work with the subtext, but my subtext for this, I just want to add get started today, Google Play, whatever, whatever. So I have my Google Play logo. Do I have it here though? Okay, I don't have it here. Okay, so I'm going to be stopping this episode here. Then in the next video, I'm going to be putting the Google Play Store um, stuff, and I'm going to be adding a CTA as well. I'm going to finish it like that. So watch the next video.